Welcome one, welcome all. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on the beautiful blue planet. I need to turn that light on over there. Stepping back in the past, I had a revelation today. I was looking at information with the Hungarian armies and what was occurring with the Ottoman Empire. Got to turn on the double echo. But it seems like what we're seeing again is nothing more than just these players in history are actors moving through the timeline, countries, I should say, not just individuals, the politicians, the puppet stringers. But it's if you go trace further back in the past, you start to look at. I'm going to bring a book out here too of what was in the beginning of the flood coming forward. It's nation state after nation state, and they start to diverge, and then they're almost one contiguous flow of energy between each other in the empires, the kingdoms, the fiefdoms. I don't know if it's on purpose, if it's a plan to continually keep this planet under some sort of management, but it does seem that there's a little bit of method to the madness in the way that these dueling power factions on the planet that own part of the planets are always pitted against each other. We're coming into a resource, I wouldn't say scarce, but it will be scarce to get it where it needs to go. Samsung went out to a silver mine and knocked on the door and said, by the way, I know you're a super giant or a super small junior miner, but we know you got silver. We're going to buy your company right now, and we're going to let you run it, and we're going to pay for everything in advance. But everything you get from that mine comes directly to us. Like that even went past the silver market itself, past the stock market. This is the levels they're going to. So you can see everywhere across the airwaves, there is going to be a change, and there is a change right now. But also, if you've seen the disruptions in weather and jet streams, cloud cells, these sort of thing, this early temperatures, it all kind of fits in. It's just one contiguous picture. You're zooming out at different levels and different altitudes when you're looking back in history or what's occurring right now between the related pieces. Got Ransom Godwin with me here tonight, the Civilization Cycle podcast, broadcasting to you 10 p.m. to midnight every Thursday night on Rumble as the seed point. Other venues can pick it up, but remember, family friendly on the YouTube here. If we're broadcasting there tonight, family friendly audience. I'm glad you're here, everybody in the conversation. How's this next year going to come? Because what's the crystal ball say for everybody? And welcome.
I see robots.
I see robots everywhere.
Lots of robots. But on top of that, it seems like, we kind of alluded to this last week, but I think I'll put some evidence out there that, again, and I'm not to brag, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I did mention it. The changeover of what you think of as a natural biological, sphere of influence that the humans have been living in, us humans, is ending, and we're going to merge with technology whether we like it or not. And matter of fact, that is what's being invested in. So we kind of talked about the Internet of Things, and that's where it's going. But in order to have this enabled on the population, they have to get all of what you were talking about, all of these resources totally privatized in the hands of mega corporations, elites, and nation states, which means that they're going to be coming after what's already out there. In my opinion, they're going to try to buy it up, steal it, absorb it, try to make it invaluable and valuable at the same time, by trying to make it hard for you to do anything with it, unless it's under this super grid of it's a global enslavement of AI, and all of the countries are participating. I mean, I have article after article about their blueprint on how they want to make us totally just a product that is tracked through anywhere you go or whatever you do. It's that digital ID, the world ID. Whatever they're going to call it, it's basically going to be something that I can without a doubt say is going to be mandated to be within or on your skin at all times.
But what's the purpose, man? I bring back to the same question anybody would ask. Like, okay, they get all this total control. They have this complete control of humanity. And then what? Then, okay, let's say they can lock it down. I think I've asked you this question, like, what's the end goal then? Everybody's, let's take it out to the Uber as far as it can ever go. Everybody's cyborg, brain chipped in, go out to 2050, 2070. Okay, they got complete control of humanity. You can't do a single thing. Everything's locked in. You're like 16 parts robot, ticked in, more than $6 million man. They got complete control of your thoughts, the way you do it. Okay, now what? And
Then you just get programmed like the rest of the robots.
yeah, but for
On
what purpose and what reason? They could have done that for the last like 8,000 years, and they haven't, man.
I don't think it's ever been possible because of free will, but now we have the technology to dull down and erase imagination, free will, creativity. All of those things were obstacles for total control of any population at any time, because you had to control the thoughts of man. An idea is bulletproof. That's how revolutions start, inventions start. And these are things that they could never put back in the bottle. It's like the invention of the gun or the invention of steel, or pick your invention. Once it changed the world, there was no going back. And now we've created equal intelligence to ours, or at least as far as processing power, but not creativity. That's still the flaw within the program. It doesn't have creativity. It relies on human creativity. Now, if you can control and subjugate that creativity, you have a processing block unmatched, unrivaled, where you can create the world that they're having. And I don't know what the end result is. I just know what they say. And, what they say is they want to merge with robotics and become godlike creatures, which obviously is not going to involve the general populace of 8 billion plus people on the planet. They're only talking about an elite group. It's a big group, but we're not in it,
But wait, this sounds exactly like you're speaking of the Sumerians coming down at the time. It's almost like you're repeating a 2.0 version of history that we've heard before. There's a bunch of domestic, whatever, indigenous humans on the planet, and then Anunnaki come in and find them and decide that they could be a nice, helpful companion race to do the heavy lifting that they didn't want to do. And they had total control over the populace. If you read and really delve into the stories, 400,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago in Sumeria, these same characters have been through time, controlling through time. Now imagine if you came up to a cave, let's say, you came up 70,000 years ago into what is considered not prehistoric exactly, but it would definitely be agrarian, a lot of people living, nomadic hunter-gatherer types, and then you came up with our like F-18s or something like this.
Yep.
Or
Complete submission.
ARs or something, and they're throwing bows and arrows still. Like
right.
that level of that far above has been since the inception in these stories of the Anunnaki being here for hundreds of thousands of years. So like they couldn't have controlled through the last 392,000 years. Well, they lost control. Now it's just the 8,000 years they can grab it back. So it seems like, if they want control and can have control, it's always been that way. It's an illusion. So I'm saying the illusion of time, the illusion of enemy.
Right. Well, back in the day when the everyday man figured out metallurgy and could go get some peat moss and beat it and roast it in a fire until you got iron and then beat that into a weapon, it was really hard to control. And now, if you fast forward to the future, they only have one problem, and that's that man knows how to sling a rock at so many, foot-pounds per second. And they have to control that. And that's what we're seeing too. There's the last little programs that they have to do before there is a complete reset. And one of those is to take away and completely, take and get rid of the idea that someone is allowed to defend themselves with a personal defense system. They have to get rid of that without getting rid of that. A rock with velocity. It's like David and Goliath. And there's a story there about that. A small bit of know-how and technology can overcome even other technologies. And that's a problem that they have right now. However, they have a plan for that too. That's dumb down, make illiterate, and depopulate. And I just feel like these people are so crazy that they really think that they no longer need, the peasant class. They don't need it. It's just a resource at this point, no different than cattle or anything else. And when a farmer wants to relocate or a rancher wants to relocate, sometimes they cull their herd so it's easier to move, so they can restart somewhere else,
Yeah,
or
well,
they sell
wait,
off the
now you're
beef.
getting into the woo-woo. You're talking. Wait, you're
Well,
talking about an off-planet civilization that's controlling this far, like the Earth, and whatever these rollover points of either solar-driven or middle, black hole of the galaxy driven, well, it should be electric as well. Those cycles enough where they're like, well, it's to call the herd harbor. And I put that today in one of the show notes, that the resource is a direct quote. I put this in our show notes, the points, for example. So if you're looking, email in there, we'll get it to you. Significant rainfall in the world's driest areas suggests a cyclical shift that governments recognize as a deadline for resource consolidation, framing the populace as a harvest, secure assets before they are lost to natural cycles. And that was one of the bullet points in the newsletter that I send out weekly. You just touched on that. There were floods coming where they're like the earth was going to crack and rift and things were coming out. You would try to harvest all of that wealth away, at least, and put it in your own hands, and multiple locations across the planet called depositories, repositories, military bases, whatever it is, ports, harbors. And you would try to move everything into a possible safe zone, because at least one of them is going to survive. If you spread equally all the world's resources across 20 locations on the planet, and even if we go into like a geophysical pole shift or some kind of extreme magnetic pole shift, somewhere on the planet is going to have all the exact same resources, and they are going to survive, and they are going to restart. Now, who is in charge of that? And have we seen this before? Like, there's locations that had really advanced technology, really advanced medicine, mathematics, art, engineering, that survived, and everybody else left out there for that period of time, 50, 100 years, went back to living like they did in the 1860s. But these 20 areas on the planet that have prepared for this have all the wealth, have all the actual tangibles. It's not about money. Forget money. Money is fiat. It's fake. The only money that has value, and it's even fake anyway, is the US dollar, the Chinese yuan, and the euro. Because I saw this incredible story about India and Russia changing money to buy oil. And the Russians got stuck with a handful of rupees, and I'm talking millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of rupees, US dollars worth. They couldn't sell them out on the open market. So one of the officials in Russia, I forget the name, was like, it's no good because we can only spend Indian rupees in India, and there's nothing in India that we want to buy as Russians on that volume of scale. So they had to now, United Arab Emirates and China swap their currencies, and then Russia can swap into United Arab Emirates currency, which will then be onto a centralized market in China, where all these different currencies are coming using these Middle Eastern UAE dollars as the middle, because China will keep trading those back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And those other countries can come in and swap between. Otherwise, you have fiat currencies are only good in their country. Like, when you leave a country with the money, it is no longer good anywhere. The only place that you can do that is like US dollars, euros, something like this, Swiss francs. But if you look at all the other 200 countries that are issuing their own fiat currencies, there's only 3 on the planet that are really, or 4 that are worth anything that can be cross-swappable across all countries. But then you bring gold and silver into it, and I don't care where you go, silver is tradable like a US dollar anywhere on the planet right now. So wind that back again. There's only 4 countries that have viability in terms of what they can do for getting resources. So be a global governance structure that is then overseen by off-planet civilization, say on Jupiter, for example, and we're just a satellite colony of that, a farm on the Earth. Okay, they know there's a cataclysm coming or some sort of something that's very large that's going to disrupt food production, disrupt society for like centuries inbound here. Would the home base say, all right, come back to the mothership, but bring all the valuables with you? We need all the gold, all the metals, all the silicon. Oh, those are wrapped up in what's called solar panels. So if you had advanced enough technology, you could rip a solar panel apart back in. You could get the silica over here in a pile. You could get the silver in this pile, get the steel in this pile, or whatever composite. Think about that. They're perfectly packaged squares for loading onto a vessel. What if we are at this point where everything is being called back? Like, how would they do that, do you think, Ransom? Like, higher entities on Jupiter saying, okay, something's going to happen with Earth. You need to bring all of the minerals, all of whatever been mined above the Earth, all that needs to be exfilled off the planet in a reasonable way that people don't get suspicious that all the minerals are being pulled off the planet in advance of this ocean slosh, deluge rain events, earthquakes and earth riftings and continental slides and ocean. I don't know. You tell me.
I think it'll be something like this in this article, how the Earth's atmosphere reached the moon. And you could already guess with your knowledge of stuff what that picture represents right there. That is some super energetic material coming off the sun, basically blowing the atmosphere off and then collecting around the moon. That's how I got there. So
Can
you
you
might
wide
want to
that
ask.
out, please? Can you
Yeah.
wide that picture out? That's a great graphic.
Yeah, just imagine.
Like zoom way in on it.
Oh, I think I can just open the picture in a new tab here.
Yeah, because what's that showing is such a highly energized event that it's wrapping around the Earth and creating where that hourglass shape almost is. So you can see where if there were a huge amount of particles or just let's say space dust, for example, to make it easy, rolling toward the planet, when that hit, it would create that vacuum behind it and create and fold in on itself. And they call this a
Right.
zeta pinch. But it
Right.
would be a light version of that, or it would fold in on itself in the hourglass, and where the hourglass expands back out and the energy is flowing, it would be connected to the moon. So that middle point where the hourglass would be that halfway center point between the Earth and the moon, where that backflow of particles is coming off and cause that cavitation where it reconnects on those field lines behind the Earth. That'd be interesting to see, dude. I guarantee you would see something in the sky that might be a petroglyph. And you saw that in the sky, and then how would you etch that in stone for me? Like 2 centuries later, I'm thinking about David 2,000 years from now. I saw some crazy like V shapes and X shapes in the sky, and I want to warn David in 2,000 years. So what am I going to scribe or carve into a rock to warn Ransom 2,000 years from now, or me?
Right. Well, the reason I brought this up is because I think this is the event that they're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that they need to do certain things where it doesn't take 10,000 years to recoup from it. So, we already know that they have continuity of government and all of that, but you're asking the question about delivering data to the future. Well, that's their problem as well. They also have this problem, and I wanted to show you this. So this is kind of where I think it's going in a row and why. We have the tracking thing, and then here's the question: is AI already conscious? Anyway, they say no. This guy that's talking about it, and therein lies the problem: no consciousness, no creativity, things like that they just can't make the AI do. However, that's what we're here for. And
Now, wait a second, Ransom. Could I just make a real quick point on that?
yeah,
This is only dependent on if they're telling us the true rollout of technologies. And we've had the discussion before. Are we 50 years behind in technology of what they bring out into the public? They have already had for 50 years in military operations, that sort of thing, in different parts of the society are using it 50 years ahead of what they give us. So if that is true, and artificial general intelligence, almost all experts say within 5 to 7 years, AGI will be here, absolutely, without a doubt, unequivocally. So if you're going to wind the clock and we are 50 years behind in technology, and they say AGI is going to pop its head in 7 years, then it's already here, and we're still, 37 years or something behind it?
yeah, it could be, or even more. But the plan is 100 years ahead. So
Yeah,
even if
absolutely.
they don't have the technology at hand right now, the plan's in motion, and the plan is thinking about a world that's 100, 150 years in the future, and they're setting it up. And the only way to extract this basically data and processing power from humans is to control all of them. And the only way that they can do that is kind of like a bait and switch scenario where their lives have to get better, or at least seemingly. And in order to do that, they have to opt into these programs. So we're seeing the real hit of the, this digital ID that'll be everywhere. This one's talking about mandatory on-device surveillance. In other words, you have to carry it around with you. Here's one. UK plan to put age verification in every pocket because you have to take it with you. You have to have it on you. You have to have it. Global lawmakers smell blueprint of Australia's online digital ID law, which, where does that digital thing, it goes in your pocket. And that's kind of where I wanted to go right here. We predicted this exact thing. I talked about it ad nauseum a few years ago. And now here's a peer reviewed paper on how exactly they're going to do that. And just as I theorized, they have to have it inside of you. And the way that they're going to do that is to regulate health, everything from birth control to, your medications that you need. You just can't remember, because remember, they're dumbing down the population. The population has to have some kind of equality on control. And if, they're not going to do it, the state will do it, the system will do it. And that's exactly what this is about. Body area networks, ironically, is bands, right? Think of that. Bands, you're banned on this and you're banned on that. Why? Because, well, your body area network, you're not allowed to go in that area. You're not allowed to see those things. You're not allowed to access that data. Um, that's what it's going to be turned into instead of this miraculous aid of humanity. But anyway, it's talking about cloud computing. And in order to have cloud computing, you have to have off body or off world data centers, maybe on the moon, satellites, whatever. Machine learning and are platforms that are potentially enabled advanced healthcare outside the hospital by applying distributed sensors and drug delivery devices on/in our bodies and connecting such communications to decision-making technology. In other words, the decision for those medications and how to take care of your health has now been removed from you. It's now with the corporation. It's now with whatever medical entity that's run by an AI. That's what's deciding it from then on out. And it just keeps going. You have optogenetics, and we've talked about Li-Fi and the whole system of tracking and tracing through the wireless internet, but not only that, through the lighting system of LED lights and other things. And then here you have this article right here.
Well, Ransom, I got the cryptocurrency up here. I wanted to throw the patent at you real quick because it's what you're talking about right here. And people will say, no, that can't be true, but it is. This is the patent for you. Believe it or not, it's patent 666. And what it is talking about using a cryptocurrency system in the body. And they're doing the body activity data, meaning that you would have to accomplish a certain number of steps, but you could lie and say, yeah, I walked half a mile today, but this is actually embedded in you, and you're paid in the cryptocurrency based on the movements that they can absolutely verify through implanted technologies that you actually did with your body, whether it's sleeping a certain number of hours, walking somewhere, not consuming foods because they're able to test within different kind of tasks. Okay, so move 100 bricks from here to here and you'll get your money inside because I can verify that you did it. There's a million ways that this thing could go, but it's the same exact thing. These sensor devices are within the person themselves. They don't say exactly what the digital currency is that they're going to pay. They talked about peer-to-peer and Bitcoin, but I would think that, I don't know if that's exactly true. I would think maybe it would be more on the edge of, let's say, Ripple or something like this.
Right. So, what they're talking about is completely revolutionizing what it means to be human. And before long, it won't be an opt-in. It'll just be something that you have from birth.
Like credit
Um,
cards.
yeah, and it's everything is mixed in that. And you're going to say, well, how do they program them? Well, you have a direct feed into your body, and with optogenetics and generative optogenetics is a whole science about changing your DNA and making you do things. And I've long talked about how they've had experiments with other things where they could make them change their moods, their behaviors, all of that. It's all a realized technology. And then the next thing that exactly what you're saying is, of course, your medical, system has to be tied to your financial system and all of your other scores that they'll tie up with this, including but not limited to what we call, biometrics, which ends up being a complete digital self or copy of you. Now, let me show you this article right here. So we've obviously that's their plans for it, is having AI run everything. And then we're asking, is it conscious? Not really. But what happens when we let AI run things right now? It's a complete, a show of feces, to be family friendly. It's a whole show of that because everything that they ever give it to so far, it does it wrong. It's full of errors. I showed last Thursday how, all of these articles coming out written by AI are full of not only grammatical errors, but factual errors, quotes from people that never existed. The entire world is becoming a fictional place, and they're going to be using this as a weapon. And it's not just watching TV or stuck to your phone or your tablet. This is going to be broadcast literally into your body and controlled by that. And like I said, there's not much hopes for it controlling it in the right way. Not to mention, some of the other things that come up when you think about an AI network running anything is that it can be hacked, programmed to fail, programmed to control, programmed to deceive. All of those are possible. And when you look at the beginning models of AI, like the Chat GPT style models that run the aircraft and the robots and all of that stuff, that's the same style AI, cognitive learning machine, so to speak, that's doing that. And it's wrong all the time because it doesn't understand things like common sense and other things. And not only that, it was programmed with bias to begin with. So all of the early models already have biases put in them about the reality of our world. So when it goes to the future, those programs, those codes, they're not going to get deleted out of there. They're just going to be there in this big jumble of a semi-conscious AI that is now connected to humans, because humans want to use the medical system and the money system and the entertainment system, and they want all of their, their apps and their accounts all on one device. Well, guess what? That device is in you. That also stops crime. If you go to other
Yeah, and
countries, things
wait a
like
second,
that.
Ransom, and still they start cutting it out of you. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it'll probably be like breast implants. You'll have to go get a new one every couple years, because it'll fall apart and poison you to death.
Yeah, that's just crazy. And like, can you imagine the amount of different man, that's crazy with the toxins here.
Well,
I was trying to
we're already full of the stuff needed to be the right environment for these links to the technology, the Internet of Things, right? So, and then when you add your ID to it, your world ID, and I've joked about this, you get idiot, right? That's what we'll all be. We'll be idiots. We'll be IDs connected to the Internet of Things, which spells out idiot. And we're going to be used for processing, but not ours. And go back to the materials that we're talking about, all of the metals and everything. That's just one aspect. So there's this whole machine being built and a new commerce that humans don't recognize. So the machines, they want something, they need something. You might not call it want, but they definitely need. We need data. We need, computing. It needs us, because what do we give it? We give it energy, just like on the Matrix, except for right now it's in the form of all of these new, even the Trump administration is getting into cold fusion or cool fusion, all of these different energy propulsion ideas. And it ain't for us. It ain't so we can be like George Jetson and fly around the sky. It's literally just to power the AI to give us more and more computing and answers that we're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I was trying to find a different banking article on the silver here, but I want to just throw a question out there for everybody, and I'm going to actually want to show this a little bit bigger here, so I'll put myself in a corner. Other way, I need that. There we go. So a huge ancient undersea wall dating from 5,800 BC. Remember, then you add 2,000 years to make it current, and we're looking at 7,800 years a wall discovered off the French coast. Okay, and that's pretty interesting because I didn't know, and there's the reason it's so interesting, there's very little information on this of time. So what they're finding is these pillars that were put in lines in the marking of a calendar in what is now a submerged area. So think about this, we're talking about 8,000 years ago. And this was dry 8,000 years ago. So you start to take a look at it. The TAF1 or TAF1, there seems to be a wall of megalithic stones underwater in lines along here. And this is what they're finding. Alignments of stones underwater. And it's not very deep, they're in like some places 12 feet of water, something like, it's not incredibly deep, like 1,000 feet deep. But this was completely dry, where people were putting ceremonial sites up there 8,000 years, I'll say 7,800 years ago. So that was an advanced society. Like when you think about 8,000 years prior, you're thinking they're just coming out of the Younger Dryas. They got smashed back. Like Göbekli Tepe was already built and had been covered by the time this thing started to be constructed. So you look back in time and you go, all right, well, what is it with these resets on the natural cycle of things? They come and they go, and there was an 8.1 K, like 8,100 a year ago. Dramatic cooling period where temperatures dropped some 4 degrees Celsius, and modern minimum was only 2.5 degrees Celsius. So if you're looking at the largest one in the modern era that really knocked back and reset our world, it was only 2.5 degrees Celsius. The 8.1 K event dropped 4 degrees Celsius. So that is in line with, they found this not just 200 years after that event. So you have to wonder if these are related. Were they building, and did they have this advanced society, and they were going and they got knocked out at the knees? Because that type of cooling event definitely would have cooled, even if there were, the weather patterns would have blown everything over Europe and it would have been exceptionally cold. I mean, they're just off the waters here. So think about just off France. It gets really cold in the winter. Now imagine dropping it, 8 or 10 degrees Fahrenheit average temperatures, and the winds would be coming from different directions because it would not be ocean as you see there. Then you start to think, all right, what was the world like back then, and what was really happening? Because I wanted to throw this book, and we'll gradually go through it tonight, but I got this book here. It is The Wall Chart of World History. And they go through the different centuries, and it's kind of a cool book. They mark for you the centuries in here. But to match this event up with things that occurred here, it goes back into, the days of Noah. It goes back into things before our time that weren't supposed to be there. Because as you look at this time frame that we're supposed to be on here, there was supposed to be nothing 8,000 years ago. Really nothing. Can you name me a great culture from 8,000 years prior? It would have to be before the Sumerian culture, but a well-known culture equally as great as the Sumerians or the Babylonians or the Ottoman Empire or some Mongol Empire. And you need to be something on that great of a level, like you really got in your memory that there was that great kingdom or that great of an empire 8,000 years prior. You just can't think of one. 9,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, wasn't it? No, because it just came out of the Younger Dryas era and got snapped back. No, wait a second, megaliths going back in there underwater, that's lower sea level, further back in time. And nobody's asking more questions about this thing. If there's one site like this at 8,000 years of construction, there must be
You're breaking up on my end.
more.
Breaking up.
We're just looking in the wrong wrong spot. So I think they have the ocean depth correct. Maybe it was 12 feet lower, and then, that's the areas to look. They're going to be all just offshore. It'd be pretty easy to, maybe map some of these areas out to find them. There must be dozens, if not hundreds, that we've overlooked. Like every time you start to find one, that was the clue that opened it up for everybody else to go looking at this specific type of place. How do we find oil? We look for the specific type of rock. How do you find gold? You look for that specific type of rock. Well, how do you find these marks in history or where those cities were? You look for a specific depths in the ocean that is now covered. Just saying.
I think actually all of those Neolithic things with megaliths were a direct response to the catastrophe that happened.
Where'd they go, though? Okay, so they came up with this advance. So you have 2,000 years from a knockback to become advanced. So you got 2,000 years again to get the sciences and things back, like we have since, let's say, the beginning of birth of Christ. It's like 2,000 years. We accomplished a shitload. Like from 10,000 years prior, coming out of the Younger Dryas, they had a couple thousand years to get it back together. Climate got more stable again. Temperatures rose back up again. So then they got 10,000, from 10,000 years prior to 8,000 years prior, they got 2,000. They had the exact same amount of time as we did. But they're leaving these giant megaliths, and like something is not being told to us on the true history of this planet. The engineering required to do that is beyond anything that we could, even give credit for, all the way up until like the Egyptians or something.
Well, it seems like that there were certain things that were left over from, it seems like there was a lot of stuff left over after the big cataclysm that were
left over from what, Ransom?
Ideas before that. Like I would say that the precession of the equinox would be proof of that, right? Because that's not something that people that aren't paying attention, that's not just, people running around hunting and picking berries. They're looking at the sky and they're taking long measurements that reach back into thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 years in the past. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, that in order to have a 26,000 year precession of the equinox, and to know that, you would have had to first seen it happen once to know that there was a pattern, and 2 times to, verify that there's a pattern. So that's at least stretching back, close to 80,000 years. So I think what happened was everything got destroyed, and they had to come up with a new way to save the math and the sciences. And the way that they figured out how to do that was in stone. So that even if it was a giant flood, even if there was this or that, there would be at least 1 or 2 places around the globe that had hidden. Well, it's not really hidden. The mathematics of like Stonehenge and other things are kind of well known to be a world grid of things that knew the position of other things based on the mathematics of it. So I think what's happening right now with this AI revolution is that they figured out that the only way to really keep the information is through genetics and through artificial intelligence, to know how to decode it and put it back together.
Okay, well, if you would allow me to go to the full screen here, I want to hog the screen if I could, if you don't mind. So this book I bought here was the Wall Chart of World History. Now I'm going to try to hold some of these up here. There we go. So supposedly these are the maps at 3,700 BC, 3,700, 38, yeah, 4004, that's 4,004 years prior to the birth of Christ, which would have been 6,000 years prior. So I picked a friend of mine, gave me this book, and he's like, dude, I got something for you. And I was like, thanks. And look at the great empires that were and still are. So we're going to go back, 6,000 years ago. Now, do we see anything off of England there? I mean, what was in the Black Sea? What was around the Black Sea that's not there any longer? I mean, all along Israel, there's an enormous amount of ruins that are about 14 feet deep. So I would imagine that this is very close to being the same thing, that those ruins that they're talking about 8,000 years ago, at say 12 feet deep, are the same ruins that are offshore the entire length of Israel and all around the Mediterranean, about 12 feet off depth in water. So you have to go out some ways a little bit for that. But how much has history really been hidden from us? So I want to show you one thing here. if I could, I marked some of these out. And I'll see if I can, here we go. I hope I don't rip my new book here. Let me see. Oh, I'm trying to learn it. Come on now. There we go at the very bottom, that. The deluge, it's a second flood. It's not the first one. It's the second one. Because look at the date on it. It comes down around maybe 1800 BC with birth of Jacob, according to biblical like timelines. 1800 BC, they had a second one. It was almost like a second Noah's flood. So I'm starting to mark these things in the pharaohs and the way that they had done a timeline on this. But again, if you go down over to the far right of the chart where you see the people standing up in the mountains, there was a mega drought then. This incredible drought that had come. So we're seeing the biblical flood itself occurred during Noah's time, some 2,000 years prior to this, 1,800 BC, about 3,800 years ago, the second flood. And then you come in, say, 1,500 years prior, that's another 300-400 years from that, there was a mega drought. And then you start to see the way that these countries and lineages had broken off. So I want to put that in context for a few seconds here in history. Like if there was one great flood, the great flood, it defined everything as we know it through all cultures. There was not one culture across the planet that did not describe this event happening. There's been an enormous amount of work done on how many cultures recorded this great flood and how many of them, it is the base of all storytelling, like the reemergence from the flood, how things repopulated. Noah has its version over here, but, other areas in Australia have their own version. Other people from New Zealand and Aotearoa have their own version. You go over in South America, they have their own version. So if there was a second one, which areas did it really cover? Obviously, it hit the Middle East. There were some stories of the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea being one giant water body, along with that isthmus that comes through that allows Turkey, the Bosphorus Strait there before was a land-connected piece, and the floods from the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea combined into this giant like inland ocean, poked through there and ran out that whole entire what was bedrock before, and that's the reason the Bosphorus Strait is there. That was a drainage basin for the Black Sea. That was referenced also, but that was not the Great Flood. This was a different flood, and then right there it is. So they're showing you some truth in that. But the Great Drying, this whole mega drought that came some 5 centuries, or I'll count the exact time for you here. 1, 2, 3, yeah, like 300 and some years later, the Thebes and Athens was coming into fruition at that time as well. Like you see, there was a power structure shift. China also. The thing I keep getting out of these books is when the climate changes, when there's some sort of famines, when there's something like the entire power structure of who controls the world shifts. It absolutely shifts every single time. That's the thing. The most I could say is when there's something strange happens, everything changes and there's new superpowers or new controllers or something of this. But another thing across, I don't care if you went 8,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago or 100 years ago, you could still use gold and silver. Enough said.
A really interesting thing about that a lot of people don't realize is the form of communication through the ages changed after the Great Flood and then went into the style that we have now, which is written literature and things for the last 10,000 years, right? But if you go back before that, before all the written literature, whatever communication they had that they wanted to send into the future from before the floods had no writing, none of it. It was all math and sacred geometry, and it was all made out of stone. So they knew that even the common man, if smart enough, could figure out all of the information that was there. And as you see time progress after that, more and more they hide the knowledge, they hide the abilities. It's way later before, they form this writing and reading style that eventually we have again. So now we're at that point again where the common man, if they want to and are smart enough, they have the IQ. They can figure out all of these obstacles with knowledge and history and all of that stuff and read it. So if you were going to have a reset again, you wouldn't want to wait 10,000 years, to regain that knowledge. The problem is you can see throughout our last 10,000 years, there was been a big effort to change it from, really hardcore science and mathematics that any person with an IQ could figure out, over to these secret schools of learning, religions, where you have to go through layers of control to get any information or knowledge out of it. And I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to switch back over again to where the common man can't access or doesn't have the ability anymore because of dumbed down lower IQs and bad diets and all of the other things, to a point where they have all of the knowledge. It's encoded, and you need a program to figure it out. And here I wanted to show you this article that's talking literally about what we're going. This is the Trump thing. The Trump Media and Technology Group, the social media and crypto company, partly owned by President Trump, said it wanted to help develop a utility scale fusion power plant. And then you look over here, BlackRock monopolizes the grid. Why are they monopolizing the grid? Well, don't worry about it. It's just so that they can power the AI and the computing powers, because they have no interest in the population anymore. In fact, the goal is to deplete the population down to a smaller, manageable, number. And then where do we go from there?
Could I respond to that, please?
Yeah.
Let me turn that article back on, if I could, here with the wrong one. The crypto there. This is one of the most brilliant moves, because if you know the amount of power that you have, you know the amount of mining rigs that you have, and you will have the known output of the amount of mined cryptocurrency if you're going to do proof of work, which is Bitcoin. Or if you're going to stake something, you would know the exact output, and you could also be in on a node involved in that proof of stake concept, depending on the amount of electricity you could generate. So that is truly, as a business person looking at this, that is like that is like wipe the chessboard clean, you just won everything kind of deal move right there. That is, I didn't even think about that, but owning the power companies, because a lot of people were buying private, small, like 1 to 2 megawatt mom and pop hydroelectric dams that weren't able to really tap back into our modern grid, but there was enough there to do a little bit, either for themselves or for a small area around the community. A lot of crypto firms in the beginning were seeking those out. Those are ones that could generate like, 2 megawatts a day, because they knew the constant power output of that, and it was free. It was already built. The water was clean and cool, so they could run it through and cool the housing around there. Those buildings are incredibly warm, so they're always looking for ways to vent heat. But, piping cold water and piping cooler water through, or having a fan system, all free for cooling. So in the beginning, these gems were out there, little mom and pop stuff built back in, let's say, the 50s or 60s, still working, 70s, still operational, but they built the next giant thing that was like 100 times larger. So these little ones that are like around and scattered, they're just doing their thing locally. So these venture capital firms come in, and that was like so buying a lighthouse. Okay. There's a lot of people who are into like buying lighthouses. There's a huge segment of people that are just into buying windmills, like, Dutch windmills, and they remodel them inside and they turn them into a house. And there's a whole thing like riverboats, canal boats in the UK. There's a whole like genre of people who buy canal boats. Like over here, it might be the RV or whatever. People buy it, kit it out, do whatever. There was a whole segment of real estate deals just specifically to get those hydroelectric power plants on private land that had a certain water flow, that had a certain electrical output. And that was the raging play. So if you just had one, and like you said, this thing, I don't even know if that old dam over there works and generates it. They bought those and they refurbed them. And so this is a perfect play right there. Now, what you said, they're trying to privatize all the electricity. So who's going to get the precedent, this thing moving forward? Are we, the humans, going to get the electricity? Is the AI going to get the electricity? Because that determines civilization moving forward.
I mean, just take their word for it. I mean, like right here, we'll go back to this BlackRock thing.
I trust government. I trust the government.
Says the Minnesota
Yeah, said it.
Public
I'm free.
Utilities.
That was my get out of jail free card.
Right. This was the Public Utilities Commission. They approved a $6.2 billion takeover of Elite. There, I guess how you say that, parent of Minnesota Power. Now it's owned by BlackRock. And
wait, now what is BlackRock doing though? This is the whole key of what are they doing with that electricity?
AI-driven demand.
They are mining Bitcoin and they are running nodes on different from Sway to they're in on XRP, XLM, you know, wherever you see those fingerprints, they need that electricity to hold a node to be able to a proof of stake thing like the Ethereum. Man, you can work in on the Ethereum network if you have enough electricity and computing power, but the computing power depends on how much electricity you have. So the whole drawback to this thing is the cost of electricity. If you could ever get free electric, like cryptocurrency, I don't know, like what kind of value it would have. If you had free electricity, you would bankrupt another industry completely, right? The only thing about the reason that these things are worth so much because the energy that is put in, and I saw the energy put in for mining Bitcoin, like the price of that had never dropped under what the cost for the input for the Bitcoin was in pricing and electricity, megawatt hours, had never dropped below that equilibrium of how much electricity it takes you to mine a Bitcoin. It never dropped under that price in terms of how much you needed to pay for that electricity. So a final thought here, when we talk about free energy on the planet, you know, it would disrupt the oil companies and this sort of thing. And you can run that whole, you know, electricity companies would go bankrupt. There'd be a huge amount, airlines, everything. But at the same time, all the cryptocurrency on the planet would pretty much go to zero. It would be worth nothing because, well, the proof of stake would, but the proof of work coins, like the very basis of Bitcoin, it would be worth zero. If you had free electricity and it costs you nothing, zero to produce it, and you could take as long as you want and everybody just had free electric producing and mining as much as they wanted for free, then there'd be no value in it because it's free. That is the only thing that will take down Bitcoin is when we get free electricity and there's no longer a usage where you have to have the financial input into the electrical cost to mine the Bitcoin to get it out at a certain cost. If that goes to zero on the input cost for electricity, damn, dude, Bitcoin will go to zero because it'll be nothing. Free electricity. It's like you have a free printing press. Costs you nothing. Everybody's going to do it. So it's going to go to zero.
I don't think it'll go all the way to zero because
well, okay, 0.00001. Excuse me. Nothing goes to zero.
Well, what I mean is I think there'll still be value in it because there's never going to be free energy for the people. They will always be metered, whether it's through an app, you know, just a utility charge, whatever they rephrase it as, you'll be metered anyway. And it'll be privatized free energy production. So only the, you know, big boys will be allowed to produce their own electricity and mine their own crypto and all of that with endless powers. And they'll own the public network too. So they'll be deciding how much energy you get to cool or heat your home or to run your devices at your home. It's a feed the machine mentality. That's what it is. They're now converting us over only specifically to pay for building their empire of, you know, calculations, their empire of, you know, computing. That's what's going on now. That's our only purpose. And so what would you need that computing power for? Well, it's that, you know, a digital nervous system that controls all of your medication, your mood, your everything, your money, you know. And how do you get it instant? Well, you just go with optogenetics. So everybody gets the message and updated it simultaneously with no lag.
Yeah, great. Thanks, man. I just need another implant into my body. Great. Another mag, please. The clip's out, you know.
Right.
Civilization Cycle Podcast. We're going to jump over to buymeacoffee.com, read on some of the comments. Thank you for your support of our broadcast here. Rhonda Holub, Merry Christmas, guys. Hey, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for saying Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays. You know, like the same thing, Happy Independence Day or Happy 4th of July. Huge difference, right? Like they're trying to use lexicon in your brain there. So someone, as always, thank you. Anna bought 3 Double Espresso says, love your clips. Ransom, that is you loading the clips. Love your clips. So love Ransom's choice of the clips, loading it up. Thank you for telling us that. Catherine Barlow, and Ransom, I'll let you respond to that. If you wanted to sell a small amount of my silver, like 5 ounces, where's the best place to sell it? Like JM Bullion? Oh, no, local.
Just go
There'll
to
be
the,
like a million people that want to buy your silver right now. Don't send it local.
yeah. You just find out what the melt value is of it, or whatever. If it's pure, then it has the price that it is, and you just go sell it to a buyer. Don't go to a pawn shop. Probably go to a
No,
jewelry
no pawn
shop.
shops.
The jewelry shops, the people that actually are in it to buy silver will give you a better deal. They don't care. They're making money. The pawn shop, of course, they're gonna try to get a little extra on top of it. But yeah, even if you don't have somebody that deals in precious metals in your town, there always is that option of the pawn shop, and you can argue the melt value. And if they want it, they'll take it. They know what it is.
Yeah, especially now. But I would suggest maybe going to your farmer's market and seeing if you could give an ounce of silver as like into that and then say, I want a credit against it.
Right.
So if you're willing to part at it at this price, maybe you could go to like an Amish farmer's market or some sort of like a local farm market, weekend farm market, whatever you have in your area. Find somebody there who you've seen forever, knows they're always there and they got some real operation going on. And just say, well, I have an ounce of silver. How much of a store credit would you give it for me? So then put it down in your book at whatever, 65. So as I come by, I can buy all those fruits and vegetables out of $65 in that. And then if I need to, I'll wait. And then, in 1 or 2 weeks, it's $68 for that piece of silver.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So you do that. That's a great way to, and then people will start talking and there's a silver trade community already going on. So if you're smart enough to be ahead of the crowd to say, hey, I want to deposit some silver to make sure that I get this much in this fiat currency right now, dollars worth of your veg or your produce or your fruit or whatever handmade soaps or anything. It could be anybody. Trading silver out there in the community to get that supply into you it's going to be something special. Let's say that you're going to watch people walk on water during this time. It's going to be,
Well, right now, anybody that knows what about silver is going to accept it as currency. I mean, any personal person that somebody, they're going to be like, yeah, okay. They're going to get a hand up on the deal, but you're the one wanting the paperbacks. So you're the one losing out. Obviously, the person accumulating is going to get some kind of finance charge. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but when you consider that, they're basing taking it on the future. So you're going to get most of its value in trading it with anybody that has silver. They'll know that's an equal exchange. They're not going to have a problem with that. I've literally done work and been paid in silver before, like construction work.
why not? As long as it's an equal basis. Like if they're going to try to take you down $2 off spot because, I got to take it over. Okay, thanks, bye. Because you're going to find somebody who'll say, okay, let's look up the spot price online right now and we'll agree on that price.
Right.
That's the way it should be. Okay, there's an agreed upon value on it that's on somewhere as a third party validator. Okay, cool. We'll both agree on that spot price, like Kitco Metals or something reliable. All right, jump in there, and that's the way it should be. That's a peer-to-peer transaction. There's a validating network on that.
Yeah, I got this for somebody for doing some roofs, and they only owed me about $50, and now I got a stack of mercury dimes that's worth a lot more than 50.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should be learning how to trade in this change also. The constitutional, like how much is a mercury dime worth now? Okay.
Right.
Points out, was a 7/10 of an ounce inside the $1 or inside the 10 mercury dimes, which is $1 of value, right? So you just have to work out the math. There's all these kind of calculators. So just to keep an eye on it, like you should kind of know what a mercury dime is worth, about $6.50, maybe even more in some places. Well, I don't know what your calculator says there, but these are dimes, not like quarters or anything. Taco Banana bought a double espresso. Have you guys noticed on the Google Calendar app, there are no holidays listed starting 2031? Ransom, I don't know. Take us out on the break. Give us a comment and we'll come back.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get into some goings on out there in space and how that relates to possibly what's going on down here on Earth. And it all really connects into them transitioning
I
to
want to come
this
back to the
next
circuit
thing.
board of the ancient monuments. My friends, please join us for the second hour here at the Civilization Cycle. Please support our sponsors. We approve every single product, and we've tried all of them here. So they are what we say they are, and it may get some benefit out of that. So please support them, and they will support us. So we'll see you in just a short break here. Come on back. 'Tis the season for stocking stuffers. The holidays are upon us. The gifts. What are you thinking about giving to others? The gift of stress relief. Rest well, wake clear-headed, melatonin-free sleep.
We've been told that tooth decay and gum disease
Tis
are
the
inevitable.
season for
But what
stocking
if they're not?
stuffers.
What
The
if
holidays are upon us. The gifts. What are you thinking about giving to others? The gift of stress relief. Rest well, wake clear-headed, melatonin-free sleep snacks. Master herbalist building and combining CBD, CBDN, functional mushrooms, other sleep-enhancing botanicals with an impeccable balance. One of the greatest natural sleep aids currently available. How about CBD topicals, an effective way of harnessing the power of CBD and CBDA? Full Spectrum has benefits for inflammation and soreness on your skin. Lip balms, and body creams. What better gift to give relief? Don't forget your pet CBD. Chicken flavor Full Spectrum for dogs and cats. Gotta keep those little critters happy. Immune support, no problem, got you covered. Aptogenic mushrooms, herbs, and other soothing ingredients help you feel healthy and vital when you need it most. And for these focus gummies, check out the ingredients: tapioca syrup, beet sugar, real grape puree, none of the chemicals we're used to seeing, pure and natural. Sleep gummies, stress gummies, blueberry lemon flavor. Fall asleep faster, stay asleep as long as your alarm setting will allow you, and wake up refreshed, ready to thrive. Blueberry lemon flavor. And if you're not into the gummies, Full Spectrum soft gel capsules. Tasteless CBN capsules delivering all the efficacy of these plant-based compounds in their most portable form yet. It goes where you go. Not a fan of capsules? Got the ultra pure tinctures for you, delivering a fast, truly impressive range of therapeutic possibilities, from soothing stress to easing aches and pains to help finding deeper sleep. One of the easiest, most convenient ways to access it, through CBD tinctures. Have it with your coffee in the morning or on the go as you're starting your day. HempLucid.com, bringing you everything you need for a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Everything you've seen here and more is 50% off site-wide on Hemp Lucid's holiday sale. Please support Hemp Lucid, because by supporting Hemp Lucid, you are supporting us at the Civilization Cycle podcast, and you're actually supporting your health and yourself. Remember, that's 50% off site-wide here at Hemp Lucid for their holiday sale. Click on that link in the description box below the video, or tell them that the Civilization Cycle guys sent you by.
We've been told that tooth decay and gum disease are inevitable. But what if they're not? What if everything you've been taught about invasive treatments to restore your smile was a myth? As a bio-trained physician and herbalist with over 40 years experience, I'm well aware that teeth are living tissues that connect to every other part of the body. Your overall health starts in your mouth. This is why I've created nature's perfect formula to remineralize the teeth and heal the gums. Using a blend of powerful ancient oils and minerals, along with the latest and cutting-edge herbal technologies, I formulated the ultimate natural tooth serum to ensure a bright smile and healthy gums.
This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alfa Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And welcome back for the second hour, this Civilization Cycle podcast. I was just looking up here the carat weight for a shekel, 10.6 grams of silver. Just before the break, I wanted to, flip into this book right here. I'm going to bring right there, and hopefully it'll focus in. Look under the pink Post-it note, right where that is. It is, what's it say there? Yeah, shekel, a piece of silver, and it has 53 carats, 53 CT, what is the carat weight? Now, normally in today, again, this is about 3,800 years ago. Carat weight. Now we use it for diamonds, but back then it was a silver weight. So think about how things have changed, where everything was based around silver and gold at that time. And 10.6 grams was one shekel at 53 carats. So it's approximately 0.2 if you're going to look at something like a carat would be 0.2 on that. So 53 times 0.2, you're getting around 10 point something on the gram. So multiply the carats to the grams is 0.2. But starting off the show like that, thought I'd go a little into that. I wanted to see what the numbers were because we are getting reset to a silver standard, believe it or not. Just before the show, we were talking about how are they going to accomplish this this movement from what you have and taking everything out of you. Now, I've been told one way they're going to use sugar, and they're going to make the price rise and rise and rise to the point where it'll be $1,000 an ounce for your silver. Now, with that said, the rest of the world or the rest of society is going to be real expensive. But they will absolutely give you $1,000 or more per ounce to get the physical thing out of your hand, because that's the thing about paper printing. It's free. They've already allotted like $4 trillion in the US economy just to be printed out of thin air. So it doesn't really matter how much they're paying for it. They're getting the actual physical thing back for free because they're just making the free paper, but you have the physical thing they need to get out of your grimy paws. Whether it be a 1 ounce round, a 5 ounce bar, 10 ounce bar, grandpa left you a couple silver dollars from the war or something. They want that. They're going to want it. Like right now, they're pretending like, oh, no, they're not. You have to realize that our civilization stops if there's not enough silver for the manufacturers. Now, the same thing would have occurred with sperm whales when they were harvesting all the oil. They thought there'd be no more lamp oil on the planet because the damn, sperm whales were running out. Well, there's going to be no more lamp oil. Then they found, petrochemical black gold Texas tea. And we didn't need those whales anymore. Because I was just wondering, that whole sperm whale, we got to get the thing from I was just wondering if that's a way to kill all the whales to stop the intuitives on the planet from communicating at such a high level. Like the giant intuitives on our planet were harvested and reduced to nothing. Maybe, and that was the first like separation, and the vibration came out of sort of sync because the giant harmonizers called whales were just butchered for 2 centuries in a row. They removed them all under the guise of needing the oil from them and the fat and the blubber, which, well, we now know they just could have switched to cows. They could have switched to anything else. You got the black. You don't think that they actually saw crude oil 1,000 years ago in the ground? Come on.
Yeah, it's kind of
whales were wiped out for some reason on purpose.
When you put it that way, it is kind of hard to believe because there's always been tar pits and oil leak and
everywhere.
Things.
Everywhere.
So you would think somebody at some point would have figured out, hey, you know what? There's a bunch of that. We could burn it and do stuff. But it does seem like, certain ideas are kept from humanity for the reason we were talking about before. And we're in the future now. So they have a whole, different thing. And we have, like I was talking about before, we can now understand and do things that are a danger to the system. And I say that because, smart people are inventing new stuff all the time. And that's kind of why, last week I was pointing out that they're really attacking children in the area of cognitive thinking, critical thinking, and imagination. Imagination being the most important one because that's where all innovation, invention, solutions to problems and, just ideas, and ideas are bulletproof. But if you can get everybody dumbed down, and I thought of a whole new angle on this. This digital nervous system of the Internet of Things here is basically the scheme that's going forward that is going to reduce humanity to a product that can be tracked and traced. And most people are going to opt into this, and they're going to sell it to them in the guise of healthcare. Whatever it is, your diabetes, you have depression, you need birth control, whatever it is. There's a little app for that. And I literally mean app because it goes into an implant that your doctor's now going to start talking you to get in. And it's part of this bans. And I think that's ironic because, they banned people from going outside or standing 6 feet from each other and all of these other things. This is a way to actually control those kind of crazy edicts and mandates that governments around the world give. They can take control of this body area network or a ban that uses cloud computing and machine learning to keep track of everything, run it and do this. And then this is the part that's probably unforeseen that people might not catch on to. This replaces a lot of jobs. So, that nurse or health practitioner that helps you with your prescriptions and doing your medicine, or if you got one of those that you have to go visit and you get an injection or any of that, well, they're no longer necessary. You can just use a robot that can just basically give you a shot in the arm with a little device. And now they have control of the whole network, and now you're the resource. So back then they were discovering oils and, you know, different kind of technologies that would change the world forever, including, you know, we were talking about the firearm then and how that changed everything again. But now we're doing it again with controlling the human. That is the technology.
Yeah, and if I might, again, I was just a little distracted looking in the book here. I'm going to keep referencing this through the night if y'all don't mind, because I think there's some important bits in here. So if we want to take a look at what these temples look like prior. So empires, the Persian Empire. So does this not look like a circuit board to you? If you were to clip this off and look on a microscope, this is exactly like a circuit board. And this is the Persian Empire going back, you know, 4,000 years prior. What were they talking about with technologies that they had at that time? And I'll show you a couple more famous temples here. This is the Temple of Diana, and I like the way the book folds so you can't ever really break it too much. But the Temple of Diana here, if I could put this book back together that I said was not easy to break, right here. Again, the Temple of Diana. Is this what you remember in history as being such? But here's the whole thing. They said they're both destroyed by fire. And if you look all the way over here to Solomon's temple, this is Solomon's temple right here. Solomon's temple right there. For me, it looks very much like a European castle. Like if you're looking downtown in London, that's a royal family castle. That is exactly what you would see with the King of England right there.
Right.
Like if you're down in Westminster, that is the exact copy and the exact same
With
as
a
what
little
the
lion
Temple
on
of
it.
Diana is. And the reason I did that is, let me see what the note is. Yeah, they were both destroyed by fire. So my question was, how do rocks burn like that?
Well, you would have to ask that question about
Both of those were burned to the ground. I mean, literally putrefied and melted stone.
Here.
So if you want to ask me how two of those
Egypt
through
on
history,
there?
and we can't melt stone today. So how did those two, what is the most, some of the well-known on the planet, like Solomon's Temple and Temple of Diana or Diana, how you like to say that? Come on. Like you're telling me they both melted to the ground. That plasma discharge from the sun. Plasma discharge.
Well, those aren't the only places,
Guess
you know, because you go to.
And there's nothing to say about that. I mean, you see these melted, you know, in Scotland, there's a huge amount of melted castles as well. So if we do look at that time and the time period, so we will continue from the, okay, so we got Noah's flood, and then somewhere, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 years later, we have a second flood, a second deluge. And that is approximately 1800 BC, which is 3,800 years ago. Then we go forward 300 years and we get the mega drought. And yeah, 1,500 years ago. So 3,500 years ago, we got a mega drought. And we come in. Oh, I saw lightning out front. What? There's a lightning storm in Tennessee in the middle of winter. That's strange, man. I just saw the flash. You can hear the thunder out there. Oh, whoa, that's kind of shake. Damn, that was strong. Wouldn't expect that in winter. That's really strange, man. Like you get big rumbles like that coming in like spring. In December, that kind of, and it wasn't like a little, it was a boom, and it just rattled part of my window here. That's insane. So you're live through a thunderstorm report here in East Tennessee of a storm that should not be here in this time of the year. Actually, very ferocious, mimicking any strong storms that you would see in spring with like the tornadic events and the high wind events. It was windy all day today too. It was really windy. It was like gusty and shit was spinning everywhere. It was kind of off today a little bit. So the Temple of Solomon, that melted 3,100, 900 BC. So 2,900 years ago. And then we have another melt event here. 876. Yeah, 600 years. So that would be 2,600 years ago. So we got two referenced melting events from like incredible solar activity blast. I can't imagine what would melt rock. Like what type of heat would you have to come down to melt rock on the planet, or get it to electrify with its base atoms, and then deconstruct those and start to melt in themselves? It wasn't like we have this misconception of melting, where you have to put the heat on it and then things come apart. There's another way to deconstruct things as well, like the horns that took down walls of Jericho: vibration, frequency, and electricity. So if you can hit a current into that, let's say there's silica in there, there's some sort of limestone, there's, I don't know, whatever, iron or manganese, whatever. If the electrical charge is in there, it would separate all the components into just their base atoms, and then it would come back together after the event occurred. So these things would almost disappear into dust and thin air when the electrical current was so high into that flow on the crust, and then when the event ceased, but it would all be melted. It would look melted as like a candle wax kind of thing. So that occurred, 900 years before the birth of Christ, so 2,900 years ago. And then again, Temple of Diana at 600 years before the birth of Christ. So you can see this book kind of validates that there seem to be some sort of strange anomalies that occur on our planet. Biblical flood, and then a subsequent mother flood, and then, and they're spaced on like 600 year, 300 year, 600 year, 300 year. So I should go through and go, okay, now there's 600 years, when they were 6. That brings us to the birth of Jacob and the beginning of the Roman Empire 600 years after that. No kidding. This is a record here of, and I kid you not, this book is intense here when you go through. It really rolls through every single possible lineage of people coming down from which places, which areas. And, I looked for Tartaria or Tartari or Tartari, the way they look at it in a lot of the old maps. They never... Here's the misnomer too, and all of you chasing Tartaria and stuff, there's only a couple maps that say Tartaria with the A on the end. Most of it's Tartarii with the IE on the end. So if you do your map searching or your questing looking for IE for Tartarii versus Tartaria, you're going to find a shitload more maps, man. They're everywhere because that's what they called it when a lot of the French cartographers were running around recopying maps. Europe was recopying a bunch of maps. They all defaulted into like Spanish or French to do a lot of that, Dutch. There's a huge amount, like hundreds of maps if you look for Tartarii instead of the Tartaria. And I've already said that twice, so I'm going to shut up and look at the camel pictures on here and see how they discovered that they wanted to burn Copernicus. The Earth is the center. Oh, wait, sorry. No, you're going to burn, dude. It's the sun. Oh, wait, don't burn me. It's just the sun. The sun's the center of our solar system. No. You must repent, and we will burn you with the stake if you don't retract that. Damn, man. That's like social media back 500 years ago. Think about social media 500 years ago. Okay, you're getting slapped on the wrist. People are getting arrested in England. But damn, dude, back then, they burned you alive for having the wrong mind speak. Like, that's the kind of place we're coming from here. So if you think we live in a kind world like before, it was super kind to drawing a quarter in people. Oh, you got to believe in this. Oh, wait, the sun's not the center of the solar system. Oh, you're a heretic. It's ridiculous. Like, the suppression of information to even allow you. I'm surprised we even got this far, actually, really. I'm just super surprised. And the only reason I think that we've gotten this far is because they've allowed us to have this trickle of false information this far. Like, you look at the suppression of information across history and you just see it again and again and again. But then somehow we got this free society to spread information, yet, we're going through the same thing. It's a false dichotomy of trying to suppress information and flow of speech when it's probably all fake anyway, because the history we've been given, at least for the last 500 years, is not real. It is completely just made up fictions here. Drop a little factoid there. Oh, this empire fought that. Oh, the Holland fought Austria. And then, there was Sweden and Portugal. And come on now. What I do notice in this largest map, if I could say one last thing in my babbling rant, what did I notice in this one here? Don't care about the country in the name of writing. Either red is fighting yellow, yellow's fighting green, yellow's fighting red, green is fighting red, green is fighting yellow, continuously. It never stops. Ever. This is like when you're looking at a blood flow of a vein moving through a human's body or some sort of organism. The warfare is the energy. The emotion that's generated off of warfare and death and these negative emotions and fear and like hate and these things, that's the bloodstream feeding this thing, man. This is the bloodstream feeding this thing that is controlling our planet. The whole war cycle here. It needs this type of low vibrational energy, and with the sun changing, it can't get its sustenance any longer at the level it did, because humanity is changing and rising with the vibrational frequency. So this thing is starting to starve. More thunder, man, that is crazy. I didn't see the flash this time, but that's more thunder. So this thing, this entity is starting to starve because we are not giving it what it needs in terms of like these very live. The next thing to do, if you can't start wars and get this kind of like incredibly low vibration energy, what's the next best thing? Economic collapse. You'd get sorrow. You wouldn't get actually anger and hate. You get sorrow and despair and depression. Completely different emotions. Maybe it wants to taste, oh, okay, we're going to flip it up. We need dessert now. And perhaps for this entity, dessert is sorrow. But it's for a main course, it needs anger. Because damn, if you look back through what the Mayans were doing and everywhere across the planet, like there's always been things going on that just, it seems to generate a vibrational field around the activity. And a lot of these activities seem to appease this same bloodstream energizing forces of these same emotions through history. That's what I get out of this book too. I'm looking at a human body anatomy on this one. So Ransom, I will allow you to respond to any of that woo that you might think I have tossed into there, man.
Well, I was going to say something, to kind of go back to the rocks you were talking about, these places that burned, that are completely stone, things. But if you look around the world at different civilizations, you find stones that are vitrified for no reason. And that includes places like in England and Scotland, castles melted. You could look at Cusco and other places where some of those megalithic blocks seem to be melted on one spot. And then you can go right into Egypt, where some of those giant megalithic monuments that, some people think it's pre-dynastic. Other people say it's who says they built it. But either way, some high heat source just busted and melted part of it. So you can go all kinds of places. Mohenjo-Daro is another place you can find vitrification of stone. And if you think about it, the places you find weird melted rock or unexplainable melted rock are also at civilization centers. So, that kind of gives a little credence to possible technologies or maybe even at a time where people live where they just had to deal with literally a plasma storm. You said, what could make that, high temperature to melt that stuff? Well, superheated gas, is one thing that comes to mind, which, the next state of that is plasma.
Well, Ransom, if I could interject, like we know what it does in a laboratory. Like there's a lot of experiments, plasma laboratories thing. I'm really fascinated by that. Tokamak is one of my faves. But how does it behave in the open and in the wild? See, nobody knows that. It's all conjecture. It's all figurative. It's all projections. It's all models. Nobody really knows. Like we don't even know how it would behave if it got into our atmosphere and electrified to the point that the ancients saw and started carving all those things in the rocks. Like we have an idea of it.
Might look alive.
Does. Yeah. But how does it really burn and melt? Is it more an electrical event that's separating the atomicals within themselves that causes that melting? It's really electrical, not heat. Like you wouldn't have to really put much impetus into it. Like if I could throw an example, like algae biodiesel, when you're trying to, you can grow any species of algae, but they're all semi-different in shapes. So there's some that are triangles, some that are, oval. And in the beginning, they tried to use presses to squeeze it down. So everybody was kind of focused in on Botriacus, which was an oval variety of algae that produced high oil content. So if you're going to produce algae biodiesel, you needed to squeeze that. But the whole thing was you had to use centrifugal, filters and this sort of thing to separate the water from the algae and then dry it. Then you could squeeze it to actually get all of the oil out of that dry biomass. But if you used aquasonics and different types of pulse frequencies in the water, you could shatter the cells. just using a frequency. Now, again, if you
Right.
come back to plasma, it's either in water or it's on land, it's through the air. Walk me through that one for a second.
Well, before we jump to the sun or technologies, there is another culprit. It's lightning. I mean, that's an example of plasma in our
Yeah. Yeah.
atmosphere, melting things, frying things. I mean, look what it does to sand. You get those big, beautiful, tree branches of glass that it created.
Fulgurites is the name of those things.
Yeah, I forgot about the name of that, but yeah, that's a natural
And I forgot
phenomenon.
some
So
vitrification in the year of vitrification. Yeah, vitrification is like coal making, not vitrification, melting.
right. Well, it kind of goes back to again the stone things. You were also mentioning, religions that, and I was talking about that too. The information kind of that's the inheritance of all mankind has been gathered by a few and they try to hide it in mystery schools and religions and things like that. But if you go look back at these stone monuments, you notice two things. They're really hard to get rid of. So even if you have, a little kingdom with a bunch of manpower, it's hard to get rid of, right? It's still there. They find them, we still have them today. But what's encoded in there is not a written language. There's no religion, none of that. It's just shapes and math. And that might go lead to that thing you were talking about. Why did all of these you know buildings look like microchips? Well, it may be leftover information that they were gathering from these stone monuments. I mean, it's just put there. It's something that whoever put it there knew mankind would live next to and beside for generations, all the way up until this point. And it's kind of weird that some of the areas where the most writing in our form is the same places that for some reason war breaks out. You were talking about the anger. War breaks out there, and then they blow up all the stuff or burn it. And you can go throughout that entire book there and find examples of battles where right afterwards, one of the first things they did is destroyed all the information of the culture that they moved in and conquered. They would just destroy it. They'd go through the library, they'd find new books, that they didn't have, and they'd probably keep that for their library. But if it was copies of anything or stuff that they didn't have, they just burned it in mass so that the common man didn't know. And that was one thing those rock monuments circumvented. It circumvented the power of some kind of kingship or someone and put it solely on the IQ of figuring out that these weren't like worshiping gods or goddesses in the sense of religions. But if you notice, all the old monuments mark things that were physical and real, like the stars above as the map, the time scale, the precession of the equinox, the sun and the moon, the times that they peak, how farming equates into that. So that's a really old science that was right there given to us in stone. And they couldn't really hide that. So now what do? They're all monuments and they're off limits, or there's a war zone there, or they got some kind of anthropology museum saying you can't do this or that there, and you can't have other theories. Just take Egyptology, for example. It's
That's a joke these days.
it's pretty much laughable because there's obvious pre-pharaonic megalithic stuff all around there. And I don't blame them at the time, but it seems like they just moved in and started writing on rocks, claiming the production of it, even though the maybe the geology doesn't agree with the story there, or you wouldn't have eroded sphinxes and all that erosion on the main pyramids and stuff like that. The story goes, they just kind of more built it recently, and then people came and they looted the nice blocks off of it. But you see all of this super water and wind erosion on everything there, so the time scales are way off, or the events were much larger. I mean, you could take your pick.
I'll say the events are much larger. I'm trying to send you an image right now that showed water erosion and water lapping up to where you see those the capstones that was water erosion, wave erosion there, that the waters had risen that far up, like 100, 200 feet deeper, eroding that up on the top capstones, and then subsequently the seas have drained down. So you just have to wonder if you're looking at some of these events through history, some sort of displacement, even if it was 100 miles, like our Earth shifted somehow, not geophysically completely dumping on the poles, but for a short period of time, that would be ferocious wave action. Like even if a flood came in for just 2 weeks, up to that level, 200 feet taller. Earth slipped a little bit, like 2 degrees, 120 miles of movement of water, or let's say 1 degree, that actual geophysically shifted a single 1 degree. So 60 miles of water got displaced. It would be sandy, be rolling through the desert. It'd probably slosh around for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, could you get that much erosion off the capstones with something of that depth and that level is the question. Now, Ransom, I'd love to send you that, but I need to go back into Teams, which I turned off the same bandwidth to be able to get you that image. So let me turn it back on. But I would love to send that to you. I just did it in a video the day before yesterday.
Here,
and I was asking some of these same questions. There's a huge amount of rainfall coming back into Africa. Not a little bit, to the point it's actually disrupting society there. And he would say, well, how is water disrupting society? They should be just like jumping for joy. The water, you know, it's always like really dry and they're praying for rain. Well, as the lakes had been decreasing, and I found a couple from the 1600s, as the lake water had been receding, everybody's following it. Like, you know, 2 generations, the lake's like 15 miles further that way than it was when you were a child, or your parent was a child, your dad was a child, or mom. It's gone that way 15 miles. So the villages are chasing it and the towns are chasing it down. They're chasing the constant water supply. When they finally got to the very furthest down, probably 15 years ago, or right at the, about 2000, somewhere around there, 2005, that was the lowest the water could ever get in the entire cycle of thousands of years. That is the lowest water that is possible on the chart of going to the high and the low. It never gets any lower. That's the baseline lowest it can ever go, ever. Well, we've hit that point, and now it's starting to refill. So for the next 6,000 years, that thing's only going to get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. There's no way to run from that catchment basin. That's the whole thing, is it is coming back. The entire flow of everything on our planet is coming back from time immemorial. So what would you do? Like, a lot of governments are responding by building hydroelectric dams across Africa in the desert because they know the water's coming back. See, that's the first thing. Like, if you're looking at white elephant projects funded by the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, they were pushing like billions, tens of billions out to these literally white elephant projects. We're going to build the largest hydroelectric dam in one of the driest places in Africa. And you would laugh and say, who would ever fund that? That's the most ridiculous thing. And it filled up 5 to 6 years early on the wildest projections, as they always try to oversell it. Yeah, it'll fill up in 7 years. Well, it filled up in 2. Like, whoever knows this is in play knows that the rainfall is coming back. Like, there's dams in Chad. Like, whoever in the hell is going to finance a hydroelectric dam in Chad, in one of the driest places again on the planet, like in the Sahel, man, never had rain for hundreds plural of years. And you're going to build a hydroelectric dam. So this is why everybody thought it was such a scam with the World Bank. But now the rains are coming back, and those are going to be viable dams. They're going to produce the electric. And once Africa gets electrified, they're going to follow the same path as the U.S. They're going to be able to electrify. They're going to have constant oil and gas. They're going to have constant energy and roadways. And, it's just going to be, they're following the fourth turning. This Western world finishes at the 80th year here. The beginning of the 80 year starts in Africa. It just moves. The money just moves. And that's what I'm seeing here too, is the money just moves. It moves from place to place. Now here's also another one, if I might. Notice the flow and the pattern on this one here. Or maybe I need to jump back on that. Excuse me. I lost my fingering on it, if I may. Now, if you look at the throws on this one here, what do you see? It's an ebb and a flow. Like, everything's moving forward and different lineages are coming off, and then what do we see? A complete bottleneck where there's only one lineage from Tehran that continues. Like, everybody else has died out. Their entire lineage at that point ends. Do we see that? Like, there's only one strand that continues in its flow of populating our planet. Right? There's only one. Now, I'd like to point out this as well. We come to the same kind of flow. We're at the end here, where all these simultaneous, incredibly small flows are all going to go to zero. What's the one? The big red one in the middle is probably going to continue. That's what I would say, and think about that, because if you follow what Ransom had been talking about earlier, the constriction of human population on the planet, it's only going to flow in one direction. And I will have to dissect in and see what this red one is, because I didn't want to hog the mic up too much, but there are patterns that are repeatable and recognizable that are here. And this lineage looks like the largest of the reds comes from Nicholas II and Ivan the Fourth. That's the lineage that looks like it shall continue.
Did his internet cut off? You are frozen, sir. Well, I'll wait for him to readjust. Anyway, check this out. So here's a picture of that Osirion that's out there back behind the pyramids. And you notice how all of the blocks are flat, but not only that it's submerged underneath the ground level down here, where most of the building is now below the water level. And you don't see like super erosion on there, except for at the top where they dug it out over the time, but it was filled with water, so all this stuff got messed up. But if you look over here in the corner, you see some like not Pumapunku, like Cusco and other Incan sites construction style. And then you find these flat, perfect, right-angled blocks in here. But none of that's really, eroded too much. It was buried. But if you look at these guys up on the surface, they got, a lot of water erosion and wind erosion. I mean, so that's a pretty big difference between what's going on above ground and below ground. And, the question is, was this full of water in pharaonic times? I think it was mostly. I think they were only accessing the top levels of this, which means they probably didn't build it. But nowhere where you go, you find just mathematics, no writing on any of this super big stuff. No religions, no histories, really. Just math and shape, seems like. Anyway, I don't know what happened to the Dubai. Maybe the lightning got him. Check this out. I think he's getting hit by some thunderstorms right now. Look at this. I wonder why they're doing this. I don't know. He's talking about all these empires coming and going, and that's exactly what's going on Earth right now as Russia deploys their entire fleet of nuclear icebreakers to the Arctic. So they're trying to make sure that they keep those gulfs and shipping lanes open for them. Yeah. U.S. has promised Ukraine territory. That's because that war's about to be over soon, unless Europe gets their way and makes it spread into there. And just as I predicted, where I told you guys a long time ago that, one of the players that no one takes seriously in the nuclear game is Japan. And, they've been sending up satellites and doing this and that. They have really great rocket technology. And not only that, they have an ass load of nuclear material, enriched material that they could just switch over and have some nukes with a little bit of tinkering and some technology. Japan needs to possess nuclear weapons, Prime Minister Office source says. So, yeah, things are looking spicy out there. Secret government UFO program. And I think what this is just technology. People doesn't know what it is. Mysterious as flock of UFOs seen hovering over a power station for more than a year. And then here's this article that might put it in perspective. Why the U.S. and Chinese satellites are dogfighting in orbit. They're always telling you, well, if it's moving around, it's not a satellite. But evidently it is. It is a satellite. That is what's going on. And besides that, if you saw technology, would you even know, whose technology it was? Because it looks like it's the same technology. Here's the B-2 Spirit, cost $2 billion, length 21 meters, payload 18 tons, speed 1,010 kilometers an hour. I was about to say knots, but it's not. Length 30 meters, payload 30 tons, speed 1,200 kilometers per hour there, and it's half the cost. I don't know Would you even be able to tell which country that was unless, you really paid attention to that? And then meanwhile, while they're all preparing for war, they are ramping up this digital ID thing, and they want you to start wearing all of these components to help track yourself. You're going to opt in, so you could get your Ozempic or your diabetes medicine, diabetes supplies. You remember that guy that did the oatmeal commercials? Anyway, global lawmakers want to, this blueprint of online digital ID law for everywhere. And it has nothing to do with protecting minors. It's more about banning people from being able to say things, read things, understand things, and find out about things here in the near future. And it's ironic that paper, that peer-reviewed paper talking about the Internet of Things, calls it, the ban. And I just want you guys to think about really what this is saying. It's going to change things. I think I think I might have checked. No, here it is. Body area networks. And they're going to use this with the other technology that I've been talking about on here, where you can kind of get a three-dimensional picture of the human domain using the Wi-Fi, Li-Fi, microwave, 5G, 6G, whatever. It's all used together to keep track of what you're doing. And now people are going to go and surpass being a phone zombie and having their phone with them at all times and doing all this stuff for them and reminding them and keeping track of things and basically being a out of the body hard drive, external hard drive, to know how to do things and understand things and remember things. And then meanwhile, the children getting rewired with an entirely artificial intelligence generated world is going to have that portion of the brain that does the imagining completely, neutered, I guess is the right word. Meanwhile, people are going to be putting in all of these devices, and they're going to be, not big ones. It'll be something cute. I've already seen them around for different stuff. And then you kind of go, that's kind of weird. That the traditional old medicines found around the world have some good results when looked at by people and doing studies on them like this. Psychedelics might fix your depression by rewiring your brain, study finds. Oh, that'd be nice, but the majority of the world, that would be illegal for them to get a hold of those materials and stuff. But look over here to Canada, and if you're an American, don't think you're far behind, because there's now 12 states passing laws that mirror Canada's assisted offing, which is in my mind sick. I mean, I could see it in certain circumstances. If someone's old at the end of their life, in severe pain, and there's a clock ticking on them, and they want to choose that. But for all of the other reasons that they're coming up with, is you a veteran, you're depressed, you got Down syndrome, you're old, sick, addicted to drugs, whatever, we'll help you out. And you might even, receive and be, able to apply for some financial aid in your transition. Canada couldn't treat a sick woman, so it offered her those bad words there. I'm not going to read them, because you never know about the AI and the algorithm of what you can and can't say. And the president got on the thing and said that we're in the best everything. It's better than anything, ever before. But people are saying, I'm not really feeling it. Not really feeling it. And, I just brought up this paper here to kind of illustrate that we know that there's burps off the sun that do things that are powerful stuff, because, if they're depositing atmosphere on the moon, that would have been an interesting show here on Earth. And then you got this. More evidence of an electric universe just based on this picture alone, which caught my eye with the dumbbell shape. And if you guys heard of, I forgot I think it's called cold fusion. Basically, like when two materials of the same thing just bond in zero gravity and become one object. I might be wrong on the name of that kind of fusion, but there's a phenomenon that happens when things are made out of the same materials. They just kind of weld themselves together. First of its kind cosmic collision spotted 25 light years from Earth. Astronomers initially thought the dramatic burst of light was a new exoplanet, but it turns out it was, things smacking together. What astronomers initially suspected to be an exoplanet is actually a never before seen head-on cosmic crash, as detailed in a study published today in the Journal of Science. Researchers described the aftermath of two separate collisions between two small rocky cosmic objects called planetesimals. However, their findings were only made possible by some eagle eye image courtesy of the Hubble Space Telescope. But it does have that shape that we seem to find most asteroids in, which is the exact shape that you would find if, maybe two things were electrically charged and bonded together via this process of fusion in 0G. And tonight, I think it's tonight, Cosmic 3i Atlas reaches its closest point to Earth tonight. How to see it in the sky and online. There's various streaming sites you can go watch a still frame of it or a computer-generated model of how it's going. But some weird things about it. Scientists detect X-ray glow. Well, I guess it's not that weird. From interstellar Comet 3i Atlas extending 2,500 miles into space. And there's a little digital illustration of an image. I don't know if it's supposed to be depicting that or not. But yeah. And then if you want to really find out some of the observations on one far end of thinking, even though I actually think in his articles he's kind of balanced. He never says it is definitely this thing. He just said what it could have, should have, it could be, it's possible, it might be, it may be, which is the way that most papers are written now about anything with no real answers on there. I don't know what happened to Dubine there. He just kind of zorbed out on the lightning storm, I guess. Anyway, Russia gaining stuff in Ukraine. But like I said, I don't expect that to last much longer. Leak files show U.S. wants to persuade all these nations in Europe to get out of NATO and form some kind of new coalition with the Western civilization over here. But I can't stress enough, maybe you shouldn't take inserts into your body to deliver medication or other things. You might just be part of the Internet of Things, but you'll need your ID, and then you'll be one of the idiots. What time is it? It's about the end of the show anyway. Let's check out the chat, and I will go over here. Let's see the chat room. What's going on? Any questions? If you believe that, boy, do I have a bridge to sell you. Right here. I had a patient years ago that stated, what was it? Stated he cured his mom's cancer using, I can't say that. Well, that's hearsay. I didn't say it, but they said it. They said it. They said that they said it, so it's not a quote from me. I almost read it. You almost got me. Oh, can't read that one either. Yeah, I bet that is an excellent series. If you're looking in the chat, you can see the name of that. But, with these weirdos at YouTube, I can't put nothing up, or they might, intervene in your viewing pleasure of the Civilization Cycle podcast. Anyway, if you like our show, you can help us out by doing this here thing, or you could scan that. You could join the digital AI revolution. I'm just joking. It's not AI. It's just a QR code. But that may be the language of the future, as robots might be the only one that know how to read here in just a few years. A few decades later, after the implementing of some of these new technologies that I'm going to say are weapons. They can call them what they want. It can be cute, or whatever, or convenient, or whatever. It's just a slippery slope. People, like I said, will probably opt into the system of the Internet of Things by getting devices that their doctor or healthcare provider told them to get that will be beneficial in their life, I'm sure. But you could see with a system like that it wouldn't be hard to switch over to any kind of nefarious control mechanisms, if you know what I mean. And you can sign up for the newsletter. From what I hear, he sends that out usually right about before the new show or earlier in the week. So you can get that if you would like that. Now let's see what's going on over here in the chat for the last few minutes here. B-17 found in seeds. Oh, you mean the B-17 bomber? I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I do like pecans that are not really sweet. What's the opposite? Like bitter pecans. They're pretty good. Thanks again, David and Ransom. Thank you for watching. Bright veggies. Yes, you need your greens and your reds and your yellows. Those are all good colors. Oranges. Not psychedelic shrooms, just Reiki. Yeah. Have a Merry Christmas, Ransom. Thank you. And you too. Anyway, I guess that's all I got there for tonight. I think I had it somewhere up here. Yeah, here it is. Let me share that. Yeah, so there's some storms blowing through Tennessee right now. I think one of them destroyed his internet connection, most likely. But we'll see you again next Thursday. Same time, same place. Right here on Mountain High Time or Civilization Cycle for the Civilization Cycle podcast.